Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to talk about leadership, what works, what struggles some of our panelists have been through, what they've done to overcome some of those struggles, and ultimately, how do we advance women's leadership? I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. I'll invite them up, and then we'll start our conversation. And I'll remind you, it's a conversation. Since I anchor a show where I love when people interrupt and jump in and don't always agree, I hope that my panelists will do the same thing. We begin with Beth Brooke. She's the Global Vice Chair for Public Policy at Ernst & Young and is a member of the firm's Global Executive Board. She's being honored tonight for her leadership as a role model for what women can accomplish and the passion that she brings to providing opportunities for women and girls, for understanding the importance of diversity to sound decision-making, and for her courage in speaking to these passions and commitments in high-level settings where she is often the lone female voice. Beth also recognizes the importance of civil society and is very supportive of the women's nonprofits. She chairs the White House Project Board and is an NCRW member center. Welcome to Beth. Come on up, Beth. This evening, Anita Hill is being honored for her courage and her honesty at great risk to herself and to her career when she testified in the Clarence Thomas hearings that forever changed the way the world views women and made people recognize everywhere that harassment of any type, but especially sexual harassment, is unacceptable. Her bravery has helped to change workplace and institutional dynamics between men and women. Anita continues to write with courage about and speaks out on issues of inequality, whether it's racial or economic or generational or sexual orientation or gender-based. Anita Hill, please come up and join us. And this evening, Abby Disney is being honored for her passion and her commitment to bringing worldwide attention to the important roles that women can and must play as peacemakers, as evidenced by her recent Women, War, and Peace series. She's received numerous accolades for her commitment to social justice and to bringing sustainable peace to war-torn countries. Abby's Daphne Foundation supports numerous grassroots efforts for low-income communities in New York City. Please join me in welcoming Abby to our panel. Before our panel gets underway, I want to take a moment and recognize a couple of special people in the audience. Abby's co-creators are with us, also her fellow honorees as well. Pamela Hogan, will you stand for us? And Ginny Redeker. They'll be joining us a little bit later on stage. Thank you. Pamela is an award-winning filmmaker, documentarian, and much sought-after speaker. She won Emmys for her film Ladies First on post-genocide Rwanda and the wide-angle series on PBS. And Ginny Redeker directed the renowned documentary Pray the Devil Back to Hell, which features the Nobel laureate Lema Gaubi. Her films explore untold and vital stories about women's issues, about social justice, and about human rights. So we thank you for joining us as well. This is to keep us on track, time-wise. So Beth, we're going to begin with you this evening, and I want you to describe for me what you see as your form of leadership. How would you describe how you lead? And give me an example of times in which you felt you had to speak out to defend what you saw was the right path that maybe others were not following.
Form of leadership, I would say, in a word, it's inclusive. And that doesn't mean indecisive, it just means inclusive. But it very much, and I've always just operated from this premise, that you do get to better outcomes by involving a lot of diverse opinions. I probably learned that most when I was in the government and had to lead the White House effort on Superfund reform. And what I found was that in order to craft a compromise, you so intensely had to understand where everybody sat. and what their opinions were, and you could never knit anything together until you could put yourself in every person's shoes and spend that time to understand that diversity of opinion. So it's inclusive and it permeates everything I do. If I walk into a room today and it's filled with, it's not all women, thankfully, but if it were, I would know that any decision we might reach today would be suboptimal, and I'd go back and try to come at it a different way. So inclusive. In terms of, you know, times when you just know you have to stand up and speak out, it's every day. I mean, it's just every day in little ways and sometimes in big ways.
Tell me a big way. When have you marched into someone's office, to whatever, and said, this is important enough that I'm willing to risk it all to stand up for this?
Let me give you a way that will seem like a little way, but I think these are impactful ways, because I believe in a premise that you cannot change, and I tell young women this, you cannot change things if you remove yourself from the table. So the key is speaking out enough so that you make change, but you don't get yourself removed from the table, because then you're irrelevant. So a little thing that I think has had a big impact. Those from Ernst & Young who are here with me tonight know this story because they've heard it before. There was a time in a board meeting where our chairman, you know, this is the classic situation everybody in this room knows. You as women are trying to make a point, the women on our board trying to make a point, in the minority, voice not being heard, debate escalates, decision, you know, and the women are trying to make a point, three of us. Suddenly, man makes the same point. Chairman immediately acknowledges it. We all know that happens. Chairman acknowledges it. What a great idea, Jeff. The three of us, so the debate escalates, the board meeting gets angry. It didn't need to get angry. It got angry, and our chairman had no idea why it got angry. It got angry because the three of us had just been dismissed. And so when we left the room, I pulled our chairman aside in the hallway privately and said, Jim, do you know what just happened in there? Do you know why that got angry? He goes, yeah, you guys really got angry. And I'm like, I said, but do you know why it got angry? And he said, why? And I said, well, you know, I replayed, and I said, and, you know, and then Jeff said it, and you acknowledged him. He goes, I didn't do that.
See, in my business, we'd say, well, let's go to the videotape.
Oh, do I wish we had videotapes. So, but then I just stood there, and he reflected. He goes, I did do that. And I said, yeah. I said, and it's not the first time. That can get you removed from the table. But we're good enough friends that I knew I could do that, because I had caught him in the moment where he saw the behavior and he could recall it. He was recalling it, and you know, he doesn't do it anymore. I've never seen him do it again. So, you know, sometimes you speak loudly, sometimes you speak quietly, and yet you can have impact.
So at that moment, were you calculating, ooh, this might not go, and you did it anyway?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if anybody knows me, that's what they know about me, is I look like I speak before I think a lot of times. I don't think I do. I actually think I'm thinking. It may appear that I speak before I think, but I really do think I'm thinking. And I have a good sense for where you can be right up on that line. And I think we have to push every day to be on the line. Watching, though, for those teachable moments. I don't find calling people out publicly very often. I just so admire your courage. I really do. You know,
well, let's talk about Anita Hill. Your moment was not a private moment that had no videotape in a lot of ways. Take us back 20 years and take us back to the moment when you decided that you were going to step forward. Did you know what it was going to become?
Oh, absolutely not.
Would you have done it if you had known?
Well, you know, you can't, there's no way you can really know that. All you can know is why you did it. And at the moment that I came on the public scene, I knew that there was something really bigger than me at stake. What was at stake was the integrity of the court. And what I had was evidence that really went to the qualifications of a person who was going to be appointed for a lifetime position on the court, deciding issues about all of us, every one of us, in terms of our rights and really a number of legal issues that would affect everyone. And I also knew that in order for us to really strongly believe in the Supreme Court and in the law generally, we have to believe in the people who are handing down the law. Those people have to have integrity above everyone else's. And so the information that I had was really relevant to the decision that was being made. It was relevant to me as an individual who has benefited so much in the last 30 years from a sound interpretation of the law that has brought about protection for women, for people of color. And I knew that the person who was nominated was someone who had shown a profound disregard for the law and the rights of people with whom he worked. And so that was why I testified. That hasn't changed. So I guess that's the long answer. The short answer is, had I known, yes, I would do it, because had I known what would happen, yes, I would, because the same reasons would apply regardless of what the outcome of the hearings were. And
Take me into the decision. Who did you tell? How did you, did you toss and turn the night before you decided to step forward?
Well, that
what did you do?
presumes that I was lying down. And I'm not sure that I was actually lying down. There was a lot of tossing and turning, not so much about what I had to say or what I was doing or believed that I was doing, but really an uncertainty about the process and about politics generally. That I was at the University of Oklahoma, had been quite far away from Washington politics for some time, and I think that was the part that really kept me up at night. What was the process going to be like? Was it going to be a fair process? Was I really going to have an opportunity to say what I knew and be able to tell my story? And so I talked to close friends. I had my female friends, of course, who I confided in. And it wasn't as though I went to someone and said, politically, how do I handle this? It was really my friends who knew me, the people who knew my heart and knew what I stood for that I went to, and the people who cared about me.
Don't do it. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And how many said, oh my gosh, you have to do it?
No one said don't do it. No, one friend said you have to do it. And the question really wasn't whether I would do it, it was how can we do it? And we were all sort of stumped with that because it was something that had never been done before. That kind of testimony on national television had never been undertaken before. Before the Senate Judiciary Committee had never been done before. And that was the part that was a question mark. But no one who I went to, and maybe that's who I chose the people who would say you have to do it. This was a self-selected group. I mean, these were close friends of mine. So no one said don't do it. No one said don't do it. I think they were fearful for me in terms of how I would do it and what might be the outcome for me. But no one said this is something you shouldn't do. And I think part of that is because when I went to them, they probably knew what I was going to do anyway. And they just wanted to be supportive of the decision that I had already made in my heart.
Was there a point in the process where you regretted deciding that?
Was it regretted?
Was there a point where you said, this was a mistake? Not all these years later, but in the middle of it where you thought, this I should not have done.
You know, I don't know. I don't recall there being that point. And there was a point in the process, there were many points in the process where I said, this is really bizarre. And there were points in the process when even after I was testifying, I was watching, I thought, this is really surreal, and so many good points are being missed and lost in this. But there was not a point where I said, the court doesn't matter, women's rights don't matter, people in the workplace don't matter. And there was no point in which I said the character of the people on the courts don't matter. And so I didn't get to that point. Maybe it was, again, convincing myself that I was going to continue through the end. But I didn't say I regret it. There was a point when I was ready to go home. And I did.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course.
I think I've been thinking about you all week. And I think that if you hadn't done what you did 20 years ago, we wouldn't have seen the advertisers run from Rush Limbaugh in the last 7 days.
I was about to ask you about Sandra Fluke.
The way they have.
Do you see yourself as a leader in something that decades later has, in a way, started another conversation? When you heard about the Sandra Fluke story and the attack by Rush Limbaugh, what do you think?
Well, having been attacked by Rush Limbaugh myself, I remember once
all
walking.
The best people are.
I guess it's a badge of honor. But it hurts. It hurts when you're in it, and it must